Before we start this video, I want to say thank you to all who have supported me now that I have officially made it as a YouTuber. 1,000 subscribers. Wow, I have been making videos since I was like 10 and I never thought I'd actually make it here. So thanks everyone. Now start the actual video. Who remembers when DLC actually meant something? Like when you'd hear downloadable content is coming and you got excited. New content for your favorite game? That sounds amazing. Yeah, I miss that too. Now, I'm not saying that this doesn't happen anymore, because it definitely still does. The reason I made this video is because I just got the quite pricey expansion for Lies of P, and I have concluded that it was fully worth it. So why do so many games have DLC that just isn't worth it? And how has this ended up reflecting poorly on the entire idea of DLC expansions? Well, I think this is due to a wide number of reasons, more than just big corporations are greedy, although that definitely is the biggest part of it. It's undeniable that some of the DLC magic, if you want to call it that, has been lost. And today I want to look into why that happened, and if it's ever going to change. So let's go back to where the story begins. Late 2000s, early 2010s, this was peak DLC, when developers were actually passionate about adding on to their games. See, from my perspective, expansions are a great idea. If you have a game you really love, paying to basically extend that game sounds perfect to me. But I think the key element in what makes the best DLCs is how the developers use the base game and build off of it. It is a very long process to make a game. So much work goes into, well, pretty much everything. By the time that game is finished, everyone working on it should be familiar with how it works. What are its positive qualities and what are its negative qualities? And with all this experience working on the base game, this only means that the DLC should build off of that. There's so much more time to develop new and creative ideas that can be more easily implemented into an entire game that's already created. Overall, developers can refine and build on mechanics they now fully understand, and can make more difficult and creative content because they know players are already familiar with the game. Essentially, I think DLC should always be the best part of the game. And if you look at what people consider some of the greatest DLC expansions, this is generally the case. For example, The Elder Scrolls 4, notorious for the paid horse armor, what most people cite as the first in-game purchase. Pretty evil of Bethesda, right? Well, I'm not going to defend them, but many leave out the part where they come back with the Shivering Isles expansion that added 30+ hours of content, an entirely new realm to explore, and a super memorable storyline that offered such a different experience from the base game that it made it almost feel like an entire new game. So this was amazing. This was some great groundwork for what DLC should be. Is this DLC though? See, if you go back far enough, there seems to be a debate between what an expansion pack is and what DLC is, and whether or not they're pretty much just the same thing, which I think is eventually what happened. The idea of expansion packs has been around for a very long time. I mean, a game like Dungeons and Dragons has pretty much always been getting expanded on with new content pretty much forever after it was released. So if the Oblivion horse armor is DLC, then the Oblivion Shivering Isles is an expansion. But a large part of the modern day problem is that these eventually kind of blended into each other, and now they're kind of the same. But anyways, in this era, the pattern was that the additional content was actually expansions. They added new and creative experiences. They didn't restore missing ones. So this is all lovely. What could ever go wrong with adding new content to your already released game? Well, it was when companies started to realize if people will buy extra content, maybe they could monetize whatever they wanted. As in-game microtransactions for cosmetics became bigger and bigger, why could the same philosophy that applies to that not apply to expansion packs? Well, if the thought was innocent, the execution was definitely not. If I'm being honest, I wanted this to be a more positive video, because I like DLC. I think it can do great things, but it's impossible to make this video without discussing how bad it can be. So let's get that out of the way. Now we've got things like Day 1 DLC, content that's ready when the game launches but costs extra. This has got to be one of the worst offenses to me. This means that the game was designed with DLC in mind Day 1, and that's going against literally exactly what I said earlier. This DLC isn't going to be the best part of the game that the developers had extra time and extra experience to work on with now. It's just going to be more content that should have been included with the base game. I understand like pre-order bonuses or launch editions that include some extra things, because these are usually pretty meaningless, like an extra cosmetic early upgrade, stuff that no one's gonna be upset on if they miss out. But Day 1 DLC is just so anti-consumer to me, it's crazy. For example, Street Fighter X Tekken was a well-received game, but faced backlash for making people pay for characters already on the disc they bought. I do find fighting games especially bad for this. With generally pretty small amounts of playable characters, yes, we are excluding Smash Ultimate, charging for additional characters feels especially mean. Mass Effect 3, a heavily story-based game released with characters and missions locked behind Day 1 DLC. I could go into more examples, but I'm not going to. People never liked it, and honestly, it has definitely been seen less nowadays, which is a step in the right direction. But we've also got season passes that ask you to pre-order content that doesn't even exist yet. I've personally never bought one of these, but clearly people must be because they are still happening. But like the #1 gaming rule is to not pre-order things, and the same goes for season passes. We've got games that release suspiciously incomplete, only for a DLC expansion to release a few months later and fill in the missing parts. This is pretty much Day 1 DLC again, but the company is trying to hide it. Or, right before the game launched, someone decided that this chunk of content isn't gonna release yet. I know there was a bit of controversy with the Donkey Kong Bonanza DLC being accused of this. All it added was essentially an end world to explore, like with Peach's Castle in Mario Odyssey, and a pretty neat but not super extensive new game mode. It felt like something that was 100% just meant to be unlocked when you beat the base game, not hidden behind a paywall. Just looking at these examples, it's kind of crazy that we as consumers are allowing this. I think lots of people are just happy that it's not loot boxes or in-game currency, but I think it's just as bad. Now, the good part about all this is that even if DLC has lost a lot of its shine, I do feel as though recently it might be getting some of it back. As I said earlier in this video, I do actually like DLC. It should be a good thing that the people who really love a game can enjoy. CD Projekt Red, who had a pretty much perfect track record before Cyberpunk, released the complete massive game The Witcher 3. The base game alone takes on average at least more than 50 hours to complete. But ask anyone who gets sucked into the game, and they've probably spent more than 100. And then they released Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, two expansions that could have been sold as standalone games. Okay, maybe not Hearts of Stone, but Blood and Wine, yes. Just like Shivering Isles, it offered an entire new massive area to explore, with tons of new quests, new abilities, and by far the best main questline in the entire game. So bam, there you go. You can release a massive finished game and then release more massive expansions after and still make a bunch of money. I think it's especially impressive when such huge games do this, like Elden Ring releasing Shadow of the Erdtree 2 years after launch too. Elden Ring is even bigger than The Witcher 3, and Shadow of the Erdtree is even bigger than both of the Witcher expansions. And it was so amazing. It even received a very controversial Game of the Year nomination. But if not anything else, this proves it was almost an entire game in and of itself. Now, I could talk about great examples of modern day DLC for the rest of the video. Lies of P, Cuphead, the delicious Hollow Trials, but honestly, I don't think that would be that useful. My point I'm trying to get across here is that yes, a lot of the art of DLC has been lost, but clearly the good game companies out there are doing their best to try and bring it back, and we should really support that where we can. One thing that's truly mind-blowing is what the indie devs usually do. This isn't all of them, but I'm sure we know at least a couple of indie games where the full game was released and it's wonderful. And then, all of a sudden, the developer is releasing new updates, new content, new expansions, and how much does it cost? Nothing. How could you not love indie games? So, in conclusion, what am I trying to say here? Well, DLC isn't inherently evil. Honestly, I think it's inherently really cool. Expansions, when done right, are amazing. They let developers continue working on the worlds both we and they love. It expands the lifespan of games by giving us more of what we enjoy as the people who play them. The problem isn't the concept, but more just the execution and the intent behind it. Good DLC is made because developers have more story to tell, and these developers understand that when you respect your audience's time and money, you get loyal fans. And goodwill and word of mouth is very, very important in the industry of games. Good DLC expands a complete experience in a creative way, putting all the best parts of the main game into one complete package, maybe with some twists you never would have expected. As players, we vote with our wallets, and we can demand better. Is the art of good video game expansions really lost? No. I think it just needs a fresh coat of paint. So I encourage you to support the developers who do it right in your favorite games, and stop pre-ordering season passes. Just stop pre-ordering anything. Anyways, thanks for watching the video. For the shoutout in this video, I've been requested to give my hopes and expectations for the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie, which I will be seeing in 1 week on opening night. My number one hope, like I think most other people seeing this movie, is that it will be at least a little bit scarier than the first one. I've never found the games too scary. Of course I'll jump at the jump scares, but everyone does. Except for those like fan-made VHS tape thingies, like holy, movie like that would be really cool. But because the rating is like PG-13 or something, I think it's definitely not happening. Realistically, I just want like at least one scene that's like genuinely pretty horrifying, but we'll see. As long as it's like a decent movie, I hope it performs well in theaters so that we get a third and fourth one, because there's no way they can adapt the third and fourth games without making a actually scary movie. That one gotta be 14A. R, maybe? Who knows? I hope Mangle looks cool. I'm still to be sold on the movement of Mangle and all the animatronics actually. I just hope they're not like too stiff. I would like if there's a scene like parodying the actual gameplay of FNAF 2. I think that would be pretty funny, and I also think that one is like almost a guarantee. And I mean, just overall, I hope it's like a generally agreed upon good movie. Expectations? Well, I don't expect it to be any scarier than the first one, not gonna lie. I think it's gonna be about the same, but I do expect it to perform well. Apart from that, I honestly don't really know. I think we'll just have to wait and see. But speaking of animatronic bears, I actually have one with me right now. This is Baby Biff Bear. He is an animatronic bear. Hold on, let me turn him on. He walks. My lord. I don't know if he's supposed to sound like that. He's from like the 80s, so he's a little old. He's got some big expectations for this movie though, believe me. Gee, you're not gonna let me record anything. No. She's actually gonna sit on my chair now. She never sits there. She never sits there. Peachy, what are you doing? What are you doing? I gotta make a video.